I, 28F, have been dating my boyfriend, 30M, for about 3 years now. We met through mutual friends and hit it off immediately. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but overall, I thought we were happy. Recently, my boyfriend's family came to visit us for a week. His parents and younger sister, 22F, stayed with us in our small apartment, and we made do with the cramped space. I was excited to meet them and show them around, but things quickly took a turn. From the moment they arrived, his sister Rachel made it clear that she was there to relax and enjoy herself. She spent most of her time lounging on the couch, watching TV and eating snacks. I wasn't too bothered by this at first, thinking that she was just trying to unwind after a long trip. However, as the days went by, I started to feel increasingly frustrated. Rachel would leave her dirty clothes and towels all over the apartment, expecting me to pick them up after her. She would also help herself to my food and drinks without asking, and even went through my purse to borrow some cash. I tried to brush it off and be a good hostess, but it was getting to the point where I felt like I was being taken advantage of. My boyfriend seemed oblivious to the situation, and when I brought it up to him, he just shrugged it off, saying that Rachel was just being lazy and that I should relax. One day, while his parents were out exploring the city, Rachel decided to have a spa day at our apartment. She took over our bathroom, using up all of my hot water and leaving a mess everywhere. She even used my hair products and makeup without asking permission. I was at my wit's end. I had had enough of Rachel's entitled behavior, and I felt like my boyfriend was not supporting me. I confronted him about it, and he finally listened to my concerns. However, instead of talking to Rachel about her behavior, he told me that I was being too uptight and that I needed to learn to relax and not sweat the small stuff. I felt like he was siding with his sister and that he didn't care about my feelings or my space. I told him that I felt disrespected and unappreciated and that I needed him to talk to Rachel about her behavior. The next day, Rachel's behavior continued, and I had a meltdown. I yelled at her, telling her that she needed to respect my space and my belongings. My boyfriend's parents were shocked, and my boyfriend was furious with me. He told me that I was being mean and unreasonable and that I needed to apologize to Rachel. I refused to apologize, feeling that I had been more than patient and understanding. The rest of the visit was tense, with everyone walking on eggshells around me. When they finally left, I was relieved, but also hurt and angry. My boyfriend and I had a big fight about the whole situation. He said that I was being insensitive and unwelcoming to his family. I told him that I felt like he was not supporting me and that he was enabling his sister's bad behavior. The fight ended with him saying that maybe I wasn't the right person for him and that he needed some time to think. I was devastated. I realized that I had been feeling unhappy in the relationship for a while, but I had been too afraid to say anything. Now I'm left wondering if I'm the asshole for not being more understanding and accommodating to Rachel's behavior. Was I being too uptight and unreasonable? Or was I justified in feeling disrespected and unappreciated? I still don't know what to think. Part of me feels like I was right to stand up for myself and my space. Another part of me wonders if I overreacted and if I should have just let things go. As I reflect on the situation, I realize that this isn't just about Rachel's behavior or my boyfriend's response. It's about the fact that I feel like I'm always the one making sacrifices and compromises in our relationship. I'm always the one who is expected to be understanding and accommodating, while my boyfriend gets to do whatever he wants. I'm starting to think that maybe I was being too generous and too patient. Maybe I should have spoken up sooner and set boundaries. Maybe I should have expected more from my boyfriend in terms of supporting me and respecting my space. I'm still trying to process everything that happened, and I'm not sure what the future holds for my boyfriend and me, but one thing is for sure. I'm not going to apologize for standing up for myself and my needs. If that's being an asshole, then so be it. I'm okay with that. I recently found myself in a heated debate with my family over a decision I made regarding my grandmother's estate, and I'm still reeling from the aftermath. I'm seeking some outside perspective to help me understand if I was in the wrong or... So here's what happened. My grandmother passed away last year, leaving behind a significant amount of wealth and property. She had been a successful businesswoman and had invested wisely over the years, so her estate was substantial. My grandmother had 3 children, my mother, my aunt, and my uncle. My mother passed away a few years before my grandmother, so my grandmother left her share of the estate to me and my siblings. The issue at hand is that my grandmother's will specified that her estate was to be divided equally among her 3 children, with my mother's share going to us kids. However, my aunt and uncle have been acting as if they are the sole beneficiaries of the estate, trying to take control of everything and exclude us from the decision-making process. When we went to the lawyer's office to discuss the estate, my aunt and uncle were there, along with their spouses and some of their kids. They had clearly coordinated their efforts beforehand, as they all seemed to be on the same page. They presented a united front, claiming that they were the ones who had taken care of my grandmother in her final years, and that they should therefore be the ones to make the decisions regarding the estate. I was taken aback by their audacity. While it's true that they had helped my grandmother with some tasks and errands, my grandmother had also been receiving professional care, and we, my siblings and I, had been visiting her regularly and supporting her emotionally. Moreover, my grandmother had made it clear to me on multiple occasions that she wanted us to be involved in the decision-making process regarding her estate. Despite this, my aunt and uncle were adamant that they should be in charge. They started making demands, saying that they should be the ones to decide what to do with my grandmother's property, including her house, which was still filled with her belongings. They wanted to sell the house and split the proceeds among themselves without even considering our input. I felt a surge of anger and frustration at their behavior. I pointed out that my grandmother's will had specified that the estate should be divided equally among her children, and that we, my siblings, and I were entitled to a share of the decision-making process. I suggested that we should work together to sort out the estate, rather than trying to steamroll us into accepting their demands. My aunt and uncle were not pleased with my response. They became aggressive and confrontational, accusing me of being greedy and trying to cause trouble. They claimed that I was being disrespectful to my grandmother's memory by not going along with their plans. The rest of the family meeting was tense and uncomfortable. My uncle's wife even went so far as to say that we, my siblings and I, were lucky to be getting anything from the estate at all, implying that we didn't deserve to be included in the decision-making process. After the meeting, my siblings and I were shaken. We felt like we had been bullied and intimidated by our aunt and uncle, and we were worried that they would try to manipulate the situation to their advantage. We decided to consult with a lawyer to get some advice on how to proceed. The lawyer told us that we had a strong case and that my grandmother's will was clear on the matter. She advised us to stand firm and not let our aunt and uncle bully us into accepting their demands. She also suggested that we try to negotiate with our aunt and uncle to see if we could come to a mutually agreeable solution. I reached out to my aunt and uncle, proposing that we meet again to discuss the estate. However, they were unwilling to budge, and instead sent a letter through their lawyer, reiterating their demands and threatening to take the matter to court if we didn't comply. At this point, I'm feeling frustrated and conflicted. On the one hand, I feel like I'm standing up for my grandmother's wishes and for our rights as beneficiaries of the estate. On the other hand, I'm worried about causing a family rift and damaging our relationships with our aunt, uncle, and their families. So, Redditors, I ask you, am I the asshole for standing up to my aunt and uncle, or am I justified in fighting for our share of the estate? Was I too confrontational at the family meeting, or was I right to push back against their aggressive behavior? I'd love to hear your thoughts and get some outside perspective on this situation. Have you ever been in a similar situation, where you had to navigate a complicated family dynamic and fight for your rights? How did you handle it? And what did you learn from the experience? TLDR. My grandmother passed away, leaving behind a significant estate. My aunt and uncle are trying to take control of the estate and exclude me and my siblings from the decision-making process, despite my grandmother's will specifying that the estate should be divided equally among her children. I'm standing up for our rights, but my aunt and uncle are being aggressive and confrontational. Am I the asshole for pushing back, or am I justified in fighting for our share of the estate? ITR for putting my family's needs before my sister's wedding plans. A week ago, my sister, Amanda, called to discuss her wedding plans. She is getting married in September, and she had quite the vision for her big day. Amanda and her fiancé, Jeff, have been engaged for about a year now. Their relationship has always brought a certain amount of joy to our family, and I genuinely like Jeff. Still, the wedding planning has turned into a chaotic situation, which I have played a significant role in. I have always been the one in our family to take charge during big life events. I helped plan our parents' anniversary parties, organized family reunions, and even coordinated a fundraiser for our local community center. So when Amanda asked for my help with her wedding, I jumped in, thinking I could alleviate her stress by taking on some of the logistics and dealing with vendors. At first, things were smooth. We discussed the venue, the guest list, even the color scheme. However, I quickly realized that Amanda and Jeff's vision was far more extravagant than what our family could financially manage. They wanted a wedding with all the bells and whistles, a coastal venue, florists, musicians, and a full catering service, which easily totaled over $30,000. Our parents were excited, but also worried about the expense, especially since they had helped fund my own modest wedding a few years prior. I felt caught between wanting to support my sister's dreams and looking out for our family's finances. I decided to have a conversation with Amanda about setting some realistic parameters. In the spirit of goodwill, I outlined a budget based on what I believed our parents could afford without stretching them too thin. I presented options for cost-effective alternatives, such as a less expensive venue or a buffet-style meal instead of a sit-down dinner. However, Amanda was blindsided by my suggestions and, to my surprise, reacted quite harshly. "You just don't understand," she snapped. "This is my wedding, and I've dreamed of this day for as long as I can remember. Why would I settle for less?" It was a tense moment, and I knew I had to tread carefully. "I'm not saying you have to settle for less. I just think it's important we don't put our parents in a difficult financial position," I said, hoping to mediate the situation. "Financial position? Are you kidding me? They don't have to pay for anything. I have savings," she replied dismissively. "I expect my wedding to be special, and honestly, if you can't support me in this, maybe you shouldn't be involved at all." Stunned by her reaction, I pulled back and decided to give her some space. After all, it was her big day, but things didn't improve. Instead, they escalated. Amanda started putting incredible pressure on our parents, insisting they contribute even more than they had initially planned. I knew our dad was already feeling overwhelmed with his job, and my mother was a few months into retirement and had been considering saving for a modest holiday next year. After a few days of contemplating my next move, I reached out to our parents. In a heart-to-heart conversation, I discussed my concerns about Amanda's expectations. I voiced my worry that the financial burden would hinder our family, particularly with everything my parents were handling. My mom expressed her concern, saying she felt pressured as Amanda was quite relentless. Around the following weekend, Amanda learned about my talk with our parents. She felt betrayed and lashed out at me, accusing me of undermining her and trying to sabotage her wedding. It was more than I could bear. I loved my sister, but I couldn't sit idly by while she risked our family's financial stability. "You can't believe you talked to Mom and Dad behind my back. You are not on my side at all," she shouted, face flushed with anger. "You're being selfish and jealous. Are you trying to one-up me because your wedding wasn't as special?" I was taken aback by her accusation. "Amanda, this isn't about me. I actually care about our family's future and your happiness too. I just want to make sure we don't face financial struggles because of a wedding. Your jealousy is clouding your judgment, and you are ruining what should be the happiest time of my life," she cried. This resulted in a prolonged fallout. For days, Amanda refused to speak to me. While I felt increasingly stressed about the predicament, I wanted her to have her perfect day, but couldn't shake the uncomfortable feeling of having to prioritize our family's needs. At this point, I had to step back. I decided to halt my involvement in the wedding planning, believing distance would give Amanda time to calm down and reconsider her choices. I figured that if she really wanted to go ahead with her large plans, she would need to budget accordingly, perhaps even using some of her savings, as she had mentioned. Eventually, Amanda managed to secure financing for the wedding through a combination of savings, small loans, and contributions from friends who wanted to help. She announced the changes during a family dinner which I attended. While I was relieved that she was moving forward, the atmosphere was strained. At first, I congratulated her on making the adjustments, though our parents seemed worried and expressed their discomfort, subtly hinting at their lack of financial ability. Amanda rolled her eyes and shot back, "I know what I'm doing. This wedding is happening, and no one will stop me." Everyone sat silent around the table, and I decided enough was enough. Defending my parents' integrity was vital at this moment. "Amanda, this is not about stopping you. It's about making sure you understand the situation," I began. "Your attitude is pushing Mom and Dad away from the real truth. They're trying to support you, but it feels like a burden rather than a joy. I don't care about their financial situation when I deserve my dream wedding," she yelled, eyes blazing. "Then don't expect me to be involved if this strain continues. I refuse to inherit this drama in our family," I said, feeling emotionally drained from the back and forth. "Fine, I don't need you," she countered, running out of the room in tears. Since that dinner, the silence between us has been palpable. Our parents are caught in the middle, trying not to take sides while also supporting both of us. My dad has taken to calling me separately to express his disappointment over the rift between the siblings, while Mom murmurs worries about Amanda holding a grudge for prioritizing her wedding day over our family's peace. Even more troubling is that Amanda's wedding is just a few months away. The tension feels unending, and I fear that if both of us do not address our grievances, the aftermath of her wedding will permanently alter our relationship. Now, I'm genuinely at a crossroads. My sister is my best friend, and to think that I've put her wedding dreams on a back burner to ensure my parents aren't overloaded eats away at me. However, I feel justified in my decision to consider the family's financial situation, so I wonder, for putting my family's needs before my sister's wedding plans. As I posed this question to the online community, the resulting comments were heart-wrenching, revealing an intricate web of family dynamics, priorities, and judgments. Through the support and criticism, I began to understand that the heart of this issue wasn't just about the wedding. It was also about shared values, family bonds, and how sometimes love can manifest itself in tough conversations that no one wants to have. I was left pondering the journey ahead as both an aunt and sister navigating turbulent waters. For putting my family's tradition above my sister's wedding. Growing up in a tight-knit Latino family, traditions were as essential to us as breathing. We celebrated birthdays with vibrant parties, holidays with large family gatherings, and importantly, we upheld the cherished custom of making tamales every Christmas Eve. Each year, my family would gather at my parents' house, don aprons, and spend hours preparing the masa, filling and wrapping the tamales in corn husks. It was a labor of love, laughter, and storytelling that made us feel connected to our heritage. This past Christmas, however, my youngest sister, Mia, announced her engagement to her longtime boyfriend, Lucas. She was excited, and I was thrilled for her. But when she revealed the wedding date, my excitement turned to concern. Mia wanted to have her wedding on December 24th, the same day our family had our annual tamale-making tradition. I panicked. I remember the joy and excitement in her voice as she described her vision for the ceremony. But the thought of missing our years-old tradition felt like a knife in my heart. I approached my parents, and we had a long family discussion about it. They were torn. How could we abandon our beloved tradition, but also, how could we abandon Mia on what was supposed to be the most important day of her life? In an effort to find a compromise, I suggested Mia move her wedding date to the day after Christmas. It was a simple idea, and theoretically, it would allow everyone to celebrate her wedding without sacrificing our tradition. But Mia became defensive, insisting her wedding day was set and that it was life or death for her. In hindsight, the flatness of such a statement should have given me pause, but I was too caught up in my own frustrations to see it clearly. The more I tried to reason with her, the more Mia escalated. She claimed that I was prioritizing homemade food over her happiness. It stung. I never meant to belittle her, but from my perspective, family traditions were not just about the food. They were about maintaining our cultural identity. I was convinced that part of her becoming part of Lucas's family shouldn't mean abandoning her own. I tried to explain this, but rather than seeing the wisdom in my argument, she grew more agitated. In the following weeks, I faced increasingly strained conversations with Mia. She began calling our family gatherings attempts to control her life, while I saw it as a desperate need to maintain our family ties and cultural heritage. It was a clash of perspectives. To her, it was an attack on her independence. To me, it was a refusal to honor our shared experiences. As wedding day approached, arguments became unavoidable. I felt emotional, and my heart ached at the thought of losing my sister, not just literally by missing her wedding, but also metaphorically by possibly creating an irreparable rift between us. As Christmas Eve approached, my mother suggested that we make tamales early in the day and then head to Mia's wedding later on. I loved that idea and proposed it to Mia, hoping she would feel the warmth of compromise, but she outright refused it. "Why can't you just let me have this time for myself and my future husband?" she yelled over the phone. "Why does it have to be about the tamales?" Frustrated and hurt, I hung up. I reached out to Lucas. I assumed, as her fiancé, he could mediate some reason into her. To my dismay, Lucas revealed he had been unaware of the family traditions that shaped Mia's early life. He supported her decision to have the wedding on that day, as he understood the romance of it. While I appreciated his efforts to be diplomatic, I felt betrayed. My sister was choosing her partner over her family. On Christmas Eve, I was torn up. I attended the family events, went through the motions of making tamales, even at times, staring off into space, pondering why traditions, something that should bind us, had become a battleground. The day of the wedding arrived, and I made my choice. I would attend the tamale-making event with my parents. I knew it would hurt Mia. I knew it might damage our relationship permanently. But I genuinely believed that by continuing this tradition, I was preserving what made our family unique. So I sent Mia a heartfelt message, expressing my love, but also my decision to remain loyal to our family traditions. On the night of the wedding, I could hear cheerful sounds of laughter and music emanating from my parents' place while I stirred a pot of boiling masa. Part of me felt liberated, upholding our heritage, but another part felt like I was missing a significant moment in my sister's life. Christmas morning came, and I was met with angry text messages from Mia. "Thanks for ruining our family," she wrote. "Maybe you care more about making food than being there for your sister." I could feel tears prick at my eyes. I never thought she would view it that way. Following the wedding, my parents and I spent Christmas Day enjoying the fruit of our labor, the tamales, though with heavy hearts. Weeks passed and our family dynamic shifted dramatically. Mia's relationship with me became strained. Anytime I reached out, it felt like walking on eggshells, while she would vent to our parents about my stubbornness. But it didn't end there. Our family dynamics began to shift as Mia drew further away. Lilac, our middle sister, became a swing vote in this drama. While she sided more with Mia, I felt abandoned. I had been the one trying to hold us together, but now it seemed as if I was losing ground. I started questioning whether I was right to prioritize our tradition over Mia's wedding. Just when I felt I'd become completely disconnected, our parents called for a family meeting. They hoped to bridge the rift that had formed between Mia and me. I was nervous but relieved we were at least addressing it openly. Mia began by recounting how hurt she felt on her wedding day, and though I had anticipated her grievances, hearing them out loud stung differently. I collected my thoughts, ready to express my own perspective. But just as I was about to speak, Lilac chimed in. "But traditions should evolve. Just because it's been done for years doesn't mean it's valid today." I realized how much everything had changed, the way we all perceived our traditions, family, and even ourselves. It wasn't just about tamales anymore. It was about my sister feeling that she had lost her place in the family as she transitioned into her new life. quietly listened as changes began to take root. Maybe growing as a family didn't mean holding on to traditions tightly, but adapting slightly. By the end of our meeting, while the divide still existed, we vowed to build a new family framework that respected both the old and the new. In the months that followed, we began incorporating new elements into our celebrations. Tamales still graced our Christmas Eve table, but Mia adapted the wedding dates into a new tradition. This allowed her to retain what she cherished, while still including our family in her life. We found new opportunities to gather, share stories, and make fresh memories that honored our past yet celebrated our present. So looking back, I'm still asking myself, Aita, for prioritizing family tradition over my sister's wedding. And, perhaps in navigating those emotions, I realized both sides had their rightful place. I still think traditions matter, just so long as they don't stifle our relationships. Aita for withholding the truth about my past. Context. Emily, a 30-year-old woman, found herself in a predicament that would test the boundaries of honesty, loyalty, and love. She had recently gotten engaged to Mark, a wonderfully supportive fiancé, after a whirlwind romance. Mark, 32, was everything Emily had always dreamed of, kind, ambitious, and close to his family. Their relationship seemed perfect, but Emily had a secret from her past that weighed heavily on her heart. Emily's childhood had been less than perfect. Growing up in a small town, her parents struggled with substance abuse issues, which led to a tumultuous household. At 15, after a particularly difficult incident, she ran away from home. For the next 3 years, she survived on her own, navigating the harsh realities of life with little support. By the time she turned 18, Emily was determined to break free from her past. She moved to a different city, put herself through school, and eventually built a successful career in marketing. Mark had always praised Emily's resilience and independence, but he was unaware of the darker corners of her past. In the early months of their relationship, Emily brushed aside questions about her childhood. She never wanted to burden him with her history, thinking that if they were happy together, why disturb the peace by dragging up old wounds? However, as the couple made plans for their wedding, Emily felt the weight of her secrecy gathering like storm clouds over her head. The couple had attended a family wedding where Emily's past and her background rose to the surface as discussions of family history unfolded. Mark casually shared anecdotes of his childhood, how his family had been supportive through good times and bad. When he turned to Emily and asked about her family, she hesitated, a knot forming in her stomach. "Don't really want to get into it," she smiled somewhat falsely, hoping to deflect the question. Mark noticed her discomfort, but chose not to press her further, trusting that one day she would open up when she felt ready. Days turned into weeks, and wedding preparations escalated. Emily found herself torn between wanting to share her truth with Mark and fearing his reaction. The event. The tension reached its peak one evening while they were planning their wedding guest list. Emily's best friend Sarah, who had known her through thick and thin, insisted that they invite Emily's estranged sister, Lucy. "She's family, Emily," Sarah urged. "You can't just pretend she doesn't exist." Emily's heart raced at the mention of Lucy, who had been a source of unresolved pain in her life. After running away, they had lost touch, and the estrangement was a painful reminder of the world Emily had tried to escape. "Inviting her isn't a good idea," Emily said firmly. "But you should at least reach out to her," Sarah countered. "You never know, maybe she has changed." That night, overwhelmed by emotions, Emily broke down. Mark, hearing her sobs, rushed to comfort her. "Emily, what's wrong? Please talk to me," he pleaded. She felt vulnerable, her walls crumbling. But in that moment, the fear of rejection loomed larger than her need to confess. I just can't," she whispered through her tears, pulling away from him. Mark watched her, concern etched across his face. He wanted to help, but it felt like he couldn't break through her defenses. The next day, she received a message from Lucy, asking if they could meet. It shook Emily to her core. Thoughts whirled in her head. What if Lucy wanted to reconcile? What if she shared their chaotic family history with Mark? She deleted the message, choosing to ignore it. But the stress lingered, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was living a lie. As the wedding date approached, A part of her felt that Mark deserved to know the truth, to understand her fully. Finally, during a quiet evening at home, she decided it was time. The weight of her secret felt unbearable. "Mark, I need to tell you something important," she began, her hands trembling. He looked intrigued but nervous. "Okay, what's on your mind?" I've been hiding part of my past from you," she admitted. "I didn't have a typical childhood. My parents, they struggled with addiction. I ran away when I was 15. I had to survive on my own for years. It's something I'm not proud of, and I just wanted to build a new life away from all of that." Mark sat in silence for a moment, processing her words. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I didn't want to burden you," Emily replied, feeling ashamed. "I didn't want you to see me differently." The conversation shifted from shock to confusion, and Emily watched as Mark's expression turned serious. "Emily, you don't have to feel ashamed. Everyone has a past. But I feel hurt that you didn't trust me enough to share it." "I was scared," Emily confessed, her eyes welling with tears. "I didn't want you to think less of me. I just wanted to be a person you could be proud of." Mark took her hands. "You don't have to hide anything from me. I love you for who you are, not for where you came from. But we need to work through this together. It's part of you. Over." The next few days they talked about everything. The pain of her childhood, her relationship with Lucy, the feelings of guilt and shame. Emily felt relieved to have shared her truth, but worried Mark might still harbor resentment. The fallout, however, the conversation opened a floodgate. A few days later, in a family gathering setting, Mark decided to bring up Emily's past to his parents, wanting them to understand her strength. While his intentions were good, it was an unexpected moment for Emily. She felt a rush of embarrassment as Mark's mother expressed sympathy while his father seemed skeptical, questioning how someone could make so many poor choices. The discussion turned uncomfortable as Mark insisted that Emily had overcome her past, but not everyone agreed. That evening, Emily confronted Mark. "Why did you bring it up? I thought we were private about this." She was angry, feeling exposed and judged once again. "I wanted them to understand how strong you are," Mark protested. "I thought it would help, but I didn't expect this reaction." "Well, it didn't help, did it?" Emily snapped back, feeling vulnerable. "Now they'll always think of me as that broken girl." Mark didn't have a response, and their argument escalated into shouting. Days passed, and Emily wasn't sure how to bridge the gap that had widened between them. The wedding was coming faster than she anticipated, yet the tensions hovered over them. Eventually, Mark reached out, asking to meet at their favorite cafe. As he sat across from her, he looked serious but vulnerable. "I'm really sorry for how everything went down. I thought sharing your story would bring my family closer to you. I appreciate that you wanted to defend me, but this is my story to tell, not a public discussion. I need to decide when and how to share that part of my life." Emily sighed, eyes cast down. "Let's work on having a united front together," Mark proposed. "If you're comfortable, maybe I can speak to them again and help explain what you've carried. I want us to tackle this together." She felt a wave of realization wash over her. The person she loved wanted her to stand strong, not only as partners but as a formidable team. "I think that might help," Emily admitted softly. Over the coming weeks, whether navigating family dynamics or wedding plans, they leaned on each other. Emily reached deep within herself to confront her fears, writing a heartfelt letter to Lucy inviting her to the wedding. She expressed hope for a reconciliation. Sending it felt liberating. In the days leading up to their wedding, Mark and Emily had a heartfelt conversation about the guests who would be attending. They approached the contentious topic of whether or not to invite Lucy. "I think we should keep it simple. Just us and our closest friends and family," Emily said cautiously. "But if there's a chance for you to reconnect, this might be the perfect opportunity," argued Mark. "No, I think I need to focus on moving forward," she replied, firming her resolve. Their wedding day arrived, and though Emily was nervous about facing possible conflict with Mark's family, the love and support from her chosen family was fierce. During the ceremony, as they exchanged vows, Emily felt the past start to recede. Mark's eyes held so much promise, and the connection they shared made her feel stronger than ever, with no room for her past to overshadow her happiness. Epilogue. 2 months later, Emily received an unexpected response from Lucy. In her letter, Lucy revealed her own struggles and expressed remorse for how things had turned out, but mentioned that she would respect Emily's decision to stay apart. The letter served not only as a closure, but also as a potential opening. Emily decided to reach out to Lucy again. They spoke on the phone, tentatively establishing a connection after all these years, but they agreed to take things one step at a time. As she hung up, a weight lifted from her shoulders. All the while, Mark stood by her side, proudly and steadfastly loving her for all she was, fragile yet fierce, happy yet healing. Now, as Emily and Mark approached new challenges together, they knew they could lean on each other, no matter how heavy the past loomed. The scars of yesterday would always be part of their journeys, yet they'd also become lessons in love, resilience, and partnership. Through sharing her truth, Emily learned that vulnerability breeds connection. She now faced each day with Mark by her side, feeling liberated and open to new possibilities. Together, they were ready to embrace the life unfolding before them. Final thoughts. In discussing where to draw the line between holding space for yourself and sharing your truth, Emily learned that everybody's journey is unique. Sharing her history ultimately brought her closer to the person she loved instead of tearing them apart. As they faced conflicts, Emily found strength in vulnerability and the desire for honesty within relationships. She had taken the plunge into the deep end of truth, and while it was risky, it proved to be the lifeline she needed. She hadn't intended to hide her past, but did so in the spirit of self-preservation. While some might argue that she should have come clean sooner, others would sympathize, understanding how trauma can create walls around one's heart. So, for not disclosing my past early on? Emily wondered where she stood, but knew deep inside her heart she was honestly doing the best she could with the love she had found. For confronting my brother over his infidelity. Background. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name is Alex, and I'm a 30-year-old graphic designer. I'm very close with my family. We're the kind of family that gets together for holidays, birthdays, and even random gatherings just because we feel like it. I have an older brother, Mark, who is 34 years old. He's married to Sarah, a woman he met during college, and they have 2 beautiful kids, Mia and Jake, who are 6 and 3 respectively. Mark is the kind of person who can light up a room. He's funny, charming, and deeply caring towards his family. Sarah is a terrific mom and a wonderful wife, always supportive of Mark's career and passions. As much as I look up to my brother, I was completely blindsided when I stumbled upon a secret that shattered not only my perception of him, but also the foundation of my family's trust. The discovery a couple of months ago, I was working late on a project, and I decided to take a break by scrolling through social media. That's when I saw a picture of Mark at a bar, looking far too cozy with a woman I didn't recognize. The caption was vague, and while my brother could just be having a good time, something about it rubbed me the wrong way. I had a feeling that this might not be innocent fun. A week later, I decided to bring it up casually with Mark during a family dinner. It was crowded, the kids were running around, and Sarah was in the kitchen. I thought if I brought it up lightly, it could lead to an honest conversation. So I joked about his wild night out while trying to keep my tone light. Mark laughed it off and said, "Just hanging out with friends after work." I let it go, but couldn't shake off my gut feeling. A few days later, during a visit to his house, I noticed a receipt on the counter for a fancy restaurant. They had been to dinner with the same woman, and Mark didn't mention it. Over the next few weeks, I kept hearing little things from our parents about Mark working late and going out more often. The pieces started to come together, and I began to worry that something wasn't right. The confrontation. Eventually, I couldn't hold it in anymore. A couple of Saturdays later, Mark and I were alone in his backyard. The kids were inside with Sarah, and I decided to confront him. "Hey, Mark, can we talk about something serious?" I asked. "Sure. What's up?" he replied, looking a bit puzzled. I took a deep breath and said, I've seen you with that woman a few times and I'm starting to feel concerned. Is everything all right with you and Sarah? His expression hardened. What are you talking about? I explained the instances and my observations, and to my shock, he didn't deny anything. In fact, he looked visibly irritated. I can't believe you've been spying on me, he exclaimed. Mind your business, Alex. My marriage is between Sarah and me, not you. His tone caught me off guard. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Mark, I'm trying to help. This isn't just about you. You have a family that loves you. What you're doing could destroy everything, I pleaded. He laughed sarcastically. Oh, come off it. It's not like you have kids or a family to understand what it's like. You're single. You can't possibly know what pressure I'm under. Those words stung. I felt an overwhelming urge to defend myself. Just because I'm single doesn't mean I don't understand commitment. I'm just trying to look out for you, for Sarah, for the kids. I don't need your help, Alex. Just back off, he snapped. And then he turned his back on me. I felt defeated, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to tell Sarah. As much as I dreaded the thought, I couldn't stand by and let my brother hurt his family. The decision to tell after mulling it over for a few sleepless nights, I decided to take the plunge. I reached out to Sarah, asking if we could talk privately over coffee. I knew this could end badly, but I had to do it. When we met, I was anxious yet determined. I could see that Sarah seemed a bit off that day. She was quieter than usual, and I couldn't tell if she was waiting for me to say something. Sarah, just get to the point, she said, looking me straight in the eye. I took a deep breath and started explaining what I had seen. My voice trembled. As I told her about the woman, the late nights and the receipts I had found, Sarah's expression morphed from calm curiosity to sheer disbelief. Are you serious right now? She asked, stumbling over her words. I wouldn't say this unless I was sure. I care about you and the kids. Please don't just take my word for it. Talk to Mark. But keep your eyes open, I warned her. She sat back, stunned, as the weight of my words settled in. I don't want to believe you, she murmured, but I can't just ignore this. The fallout that night after Sarah talked to Mark, I received a call from my brother. He was furious. You betrayed me, Alex. You have no idea how much damage you've done to my family. I tried to explain my intentions, but he cut me off. You think you're some kind of hero. You're just a meddler who doesn't know when to stay in their lane. From that moment, things unraveled quickly. Sarah confronted Mark, and their marriage spiraled into chaos. I overheard snippets of their arguments through their thin walls during family gatherings. The tension was palpable. My parents, who originally thought it was a misunderstanding, began to side with Sarah. Mark was angry at me. My parents were disappointed in him, and Sarah was caught in the middle, trying to save face for herself and the children. Weeks passed, and I tried to reach out to Mark, hoping to make peace, but every time I attempted to talk, he would lash out. I was starting to feel like the villain of the story, and it was tearing me apart. The resolution, finally, after a month of Cold War, we had another family gathering for Mia's birthday. Mark showed up with a dark cloud over his head, and Sarah looked exhausted. It was a painful reminder of what used to be a joyful family event. As the day went on, I saw Mark speak curtly to Sarah in front of the kids. It was devastating. I couldn't just be a bystander anymore. I approached him, pulling him aside for a moment. Mark, this isn't just about you anymore. It's about everyone, especially your kids. They deserve better than this. Look at Sarah. She's hurting, and so are you, I pleaded. To my surprise, he softened a little. I'm just so angry right now. How could you do this to me? Because I love you, man. I love Sarah and the kids too. I had to say something. I didn't want to watch you throw your life away, I insisted. His facade cracked, and I saw a glimpse of the brother I'd always known. I didn't think it would come to this, he finally admitted. After that, things slowly began to change. It wasn't overnight, but Mark and Sarah began therapy, and I started rebuilding my relationship with my brother. While it was hard to see the fracture it created initially, in time we learned to communicate more honestly. Conclusion. Months later, I received a text from Mark that said, "Thanks for being honest, even when I didn't want to hear it. I didn't make the choices I should have made, but I'm working on them." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I had questioned whether I was the asshole in the situation. Some days I felt like I was, especially as the family dynamics shifted and tensions flared. Other days I felt validated in my decision to confront my brother. Ultimately, I realized that protecting the sanctity of a family sometimes means stepping into uncomfortable territory. With patience, love, and honesty, we're learning to navigate the aftershocks of betrayal. So Aita for confronting my brother over his infidelity. I may never know for certain, but one thing is clear. Sometimes love looks like confrontation, and sometimes it means breaking the silence before it leads to deeper wounds. Aita for exposing my father's secret to my family. Growing up in a small town, I always believed that family was everything. My parents were quite traditional, and they instilled in me and my two siblings the importance of loyalty. To say that our family had secrets would be an understatement, especially considering the atmosphere of our family gatherings. My father, a seemingly devoted husband and father, had a secret life that I would only uncover much later. To provide some context, my father, Robert, is a retired firefighter, and my mother, Anne, is a schoolteacher. They have always maintained a facade of a perfect, loving marriage. Every Sunday, our family would gather for dinner at my parents' home, where laughter and love were always showcased. However, behind this curtain of normalcy was tension and hidden truths that ran deep. I was the middle child, with an older sister named Claire and a younger brother named Ethan. We grew up having a strong bond, navigating our parents' expectations and the normal adolescent struggles together. As we matured, our conversations began to delve into more serious topics, and we started to notice the discrepancies in our father's demeanor. During my senior year of college, I started to pick up on things that didn't add up. My father often left for emergency calls, but he was retired. The strange record of late-night phone calls was another detail that set my instincts on fire. I took my curiosity too far and began to investigate. It quickly turned into a spiral of information that I never expected to find. Through discreetly examining receipts and texts, I discovered that my father had developed a connection with someone named Lisa, who was not my mother. Digging deeper into Facebook and other social media platforms, I found pictures of them together, laughing and in what seemed like intimate moments. My heart sank as the evidence piled up. Not only was my father cheating, but he had also been doing so for over 2 years. After unearthing the truth, I found myself at a crossroads. The bond between my siblings was strong, and the thought of our fractured family loomed heavily over me. I felt responsible for revealing the reality that my mother deserved to know, but I also felt a weighty sense of hesitation. Could exposing my father ruin our family forever? Eventually, I confided in Claire, but not Ethan, who was still too impressionable at 15. Claire was understandably shocked, and we spent nights discussing the implications of what we had discovered. We agreed that our mother deserved the truth, but we differed on how to approach it. Claire wanted an intervention, whereas I leaned toward a more direct confrontation with our father first. Our conflict began to create a rift between us. The day finally arrived when we could no longer keep quiet. I couldn't bear to watch my mother smile and laugh, blissfully unaware of the truth behind the curtain. We agreed to confront our father, together. Claire, Ethan, and I gathered in the living room one Sunday evening after dinner. Our mother was washing the dishes, and the energy in the room shifted as the weight of the moment hung over us. "Dad, can we talk to you for a second?" I said, trying to summon the courage. "Sure, what's up?" he replied, his eyes dancing between each of us. Claire took a deep breath and launched into the topic. "It's about Lisa," she said, her voice quivering. The moment the name escaped, her lips, my father's face, paled. He dropped the vase he was holding, and it shattered on the floor. "What do you know about her?" he demanded, his voice shifting from confusion to anger. "We know everything," I chimed in. "You've been lying to Mom, and we have proof." The confrontation spiraled quickly. My father tried to deny the accusations, attempting to spin a web of deceit that left us frustrated. Initially, we had hoped for an honest conversation, but quickly realized that he was unwilling to come clean. It was only after several minutes of back and forth, alongside an insistence that we show him the evidence, that he finally admitted to everything. "I never planned for this to happen." "I'm sorry," he muttered, devoid of remorse. The confrontation was intense, filled with disbelief and anger from all sides. When we finally revealed the betrayal to our mother, she faced it like a storm. Tears flowed down her cheeks as she sat there processing the betrayal of the man she had loved for nearly 30 years. The confrontation left my family splintered, with my mother ushering my father out of the house as Ethan stood there, confused and hurt. In the aftermath, family gatherings became increasingly rare. My mother eventually sought therapy, while Claire and I found ourselves at odds. I felt immense regret. Had I overstepped? Was I the one who had ultimately torn the family apart? My father attempted to smooth over the situation, but many of our relatives had picked sides. Christmas was spent quietly, with an ominous tension hanging in the air. At one point, my siblings and I began receiving messages from family members, expressing their disappointment in me for exposing Dad's secret. "You should have handled it differently," one relative wrote. "Families have their issues. You didn't have to take it public." The emotional toll was exhausting. I questioned whether I had done the right thing all along. Was I truly an asshole for revealing the truth? Months later, I found myself in the position of mediating conversations between my mother, still processing her grief, and my father, who had moved into a small apartment. Christmas and birthdays were missed. Birthdays I once cherished now felt hollow. As both sides of the family divided, I realized that my actions had catalyzed a fracture that was irreparable. Through conversations and therapy, my mother began to rebuild her strength. Meanwhile, Ethan, who had observed our family dynamic collapse, drifted away emotionally. Claire distanced herself from me, believing I had gone too far in spilling the beans. I yearned for the connection we'd once shared, but felt the weight of the burdens I carried. By the next holiday season, I made a decision. I needed to stand by my convictions and reach out to the family members who vilified me. Maybe I could help bridge this divide. Perhaps my father was an asshole, but I needed to make my role clear. I acted in my mother's best interest. Ultimately, I found the courage to initiate dialogue. In the summer that followed, I hosted a family gathering. I reached out to my mother, offering her a chance to express her feelings, while I stood firm in my belief that she deserved the truth. "I'm sorry it came to this, but I can't bear the thought of lying to myself anymore," I told her, pouring my heart out. With that, I sought to mend the relationship with Claire and Ethan, who were equally feeling the pain but had retreated into their own spaces. The confrontation turned me into the villain in some eyes, but I remained true to the belief that honesty eventually brings healing. I hoped my family would come to understand my motivations, even if they were filled with anger and pain for now. So, Aita for exposing my father's secret to my family, knowing the fallout would follow. As we all navigated this newfound terrain, I learned that family dynamics can be complicated, and sometimes the truth hurts, but it's necessary. It's a question I continue to face, even amidst the shambles we built together. I may have started as the villain, but if I can foster honesty, I can only hope to turn the tide of family love. Kaita for not attending my brother's wedding. After he made a major life decision I disagree with. Background, I, 30F, have a younger brother, Jake, 27M, who has always been the free-spirited type in our family. Growing up, he was the one who took the adventurous path, dropping out of college to travel the world, often engaging in spontaneous decision-making that left our parents, especially our mother, on high alert. I, on the other hand, have always been more practical and stable. I pursued a degree in finance, settled into a 9-to-5 job, and took a more traditional approach to life. Despite our differing lifestyles, I've always loved my brother, and we have always found a way to connect. Jake recently got engaged to his girlfriend, Mia, 25F, a woman he met while backpacking in Southeast Asia. They got engaged just 6 months after they started dating. While I don't know Mia very well, I do remember her as a kind and free-spirited person, much like Jake. The incident. A few weeks ago, Jake called me to tell me some shocking news. He and Mia had decided to hold a destination wedding in Bali, and they were planning on inviting only a handful of guests, which included our parents, me, and a few friends. I was initially excited about the wedding, as Bali is beautiful, And I've always dreamed of visiting. However, the conversation took a turn when he explained his vision for the wedding. Instead of being a traditional ceremony, it would include a series of adventure challenges for the guests, who would participate in everything from hiking to surfing to spontaneous dance parties on the beach. He pointedly mentioned that he didn't want anyone at the wedding who wasn't on board with this kind of celebration. Honestly, it's not a wedding in the traditional sense at all, Jake said. I want it to be fun and memorable. It should reflect us and who we are. While I totally get wanting a fun environment, I voiced my concerns. I told him that weddings typically involve some degree of tradition, and many guests might not be comfortable with a destination wedding that required physical exertion and adventure. I mentioned that our parents, especially Mom, might not be up for it. Jake's response surprised me. Then maybe they shouldn't come, he said. This is how we want to celebrate our love, and if anyone can't handle it, that's on them. His words felt dismissive, and I expressed my disappointment. You're disregarding the feelings and limitations of our family in favor of your idea of fun. This is supposed to be a joyful occasion for everyone involved. Well, if you don't want to come, that's your choice, he snapped back. And the conversation ended on a sour note. After a few days of ruminating, I realized that I truly disagreed with Jake's approach. I felt excluded and hurt, not just for myself but for our parents, who had invested so much in raising him and expected to be part of this milestone in his life in a meaningful way. The decision. As the wedding date approached, I made the decision not to attend. I sent Jake a message explaining my feelings. I love you and want the best for you, but I don't feel this wedding aligns with our family's values or traditions. I want to be there to support you both, but I just can't with the way this is set up. I hope you can understand. Jake didn't respond well. He called me furious, accusing me of being selfish and unloving. He insisted that I was making this all about me and not considering his happiness. I can't believe you would actually prioritize your notions of tradition over your brother's happiness on his wedding day. This is about me and Mia, not you, his words stung. I never imagined that choosing not to attend would create such anger and resentment. I felt deeply conflicted, wondering if I was in the wrong for not supporting him in a way that felt right for me. The fallout. In the days that followed, the tension continued. Our parents were caught in the middle. Mum tried to mediate but often ended up expressing how disappointed she was that we were having such a rift. Dad, always the peacekeeper, tried to explain that while they loved what Jake was doing, a traditional ceremony held special significance. A week later, Jake sent another message. If you don't come to the wedding, just know that I won't be extending any invitations to future family gatherings. If you can't support us in this, you don't deserve to be part of our journey. That message broke me. I didn't just lose the opportunity to celebrate my brother's marriage, but now I was facing the reality of losing my relationship with him entirely. To make matters worse, I confided in a close friend, Emily, 28F, about the entire situation. She responded by saying I was being overly rigid and needed to lighten up. Maybe this is your chance to step outside your comfort zone. You know, it could be fun. Feeling more isolated than ever, I asked myself the question I've been avoiding. Aita for not attending my brother's wedding after he made the decision to prioritize adventure over family. Resolution. Ultimately, as the wedding drew nearer, I continued to receive messages from family. My parents grew more concerned that I wouldn't be part of Jake's special day and asked if I might reconsider. It really sunk in that while I was firm in my beliefs, I'd also put my brother's happiness in jeopardy. I decided to take a different approach. Rather than just shutting him out, I reached out to him one last time. Jake, I want to make an effort here. If this is truly what you both want, I'll be there. Can we at least talk about how to make this more inclusive for everyone, including Mom and Dad? Jake hesitated but eventually agreed. We ended up having a long talk, and I was surprised by how he really listened to my concerns about our parents and the importance of family in this process. He agreed to incorporate some traditional elements into the ceremony, like a heartfelt family toast. Although the wedding was unconventional, my involvement and staying true to my beliefs brought our relationship to a new understanding. On the day of the wedding, I felt a little out of my element, but I was happy to see how much joy Jake and Mia exuded as they celebrated with our family in a unique way. I also came to appreciate the beauty in their non-traditional approach. In the end, our bond deepened, and while I would have never chosen this path for my wedding, I learned that love is often found in unexpected places. Epilogue, reflecting back. On that time, it taught me that sometimes stepping outside of our comfort zones can lead to unexpected growth. Jake and I may always represent two sides of the same coin, but navigating that tricky terrain of family dynamics reminded me that love is sometimes wrapped in adventure. Though I sometimes still question whether I made the right decision by not going initially, I realized that the most important thing was remaining open to understanding each other. And ultimately, isn't that what family should always be about? Aita for choosing my career over my friend's wedding. Setting the stage, I'm a 28-year-old woman named Sarah. Ever since I graduated from college, I've been working hard to establish my career as a graphic designer. I'm fortunate to have landed a job at a prestigious agency in New York City, where I've had the opportunity to work on several high-profile projects. I love what I do, and I've poured my heart and soul into my career. My best friend, Mia, who I've known since elementary school, had been planning her dream wedding for over a year. The date was set for August 15th, and the venue was a stunning vineyard in California. It was going to be an intimate celebration with family and close friends. Knowing how important this day was for Mia, I'd promised her that I'd be there. Without a doubt. The conflict, however, as the wedding date approached, I received news from my boss that we had a big project launch on the same weekend. It was an opportunity of a lifetime. My design would be showcased in a prominent tech conference in San Francisco. It was a chance for our agency to attain recognition globally, and they needed me to be present for the live presentation. My colleagues stressed how indispensable I was to the project, and while I knew my agency would probably survive without me, I couldn't shake the feeling that my absence would leave a significant void. Mia had already booked a non-refundable venue, flowers, and all the other intricate details of a wedding. I didn't want to let her down, but at the same time I felt a responsibility to my career. I agonized over the decision, going back and forth for weeks. Finally, I made the call. I decided to attend the conference and miss Mia's wedding. I felt sick as I dialed her number to break the news. "Mia, I have to tell you something," I began, my heart racing. "What is it?" she asked, her voice laced with excitement about her big day. I can't make it to your wedding," I finally admitted, dread pooling in my stomach. Her silence was deafening. "What do you mean?" "I got called for a big project presentation. It's really important for my career." "Sarah, you promised me you'd be there. This is my wedding." "This is your best friend's wedding and you're choosing work over me? Seriously?" "It's not like that," I pleaded. "I genuinely believe this could make a huge difference in my career." "Unbelievable," she snapped. "Do you even care about our friendship? I would never do this to you. I know, and I feel horrible, but I have to prioritize my career right now. You know how important this is for me." Mia ended the call abruptly, and I felt devastated. That was 3 weeks ago. The fallout. As the days ticked away towards the wedding, Mia didn't just ignore me. She actively cut me out. She stopped responding to my texts and social media messages. I felt a sense of loss akin to grieving a death. We'd shared so many moments, and now it felt like a chasm of silence had opened between us. I tried to apologize through mutual friends, but the message kept coming back. She was hurt, angry, and didn't want to talk to me. The day of her wedding arrived, and seeing her joyous photos on social media made my heart ache. I'd never felt so torn. Part of me was celebrating her happiness, while the other part was mourning the friendship I felt slipping through my fingers. Then, 2 weeks after her wedding, I received an unexpected text from Mia. "Can we talk?" Excited. But apprehensive, I agreed to meet her at a local cafe. When we sat down, the tension was palpable. Mia looked beautiful, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. "You hurt me, Sarah," she said softly, her voice trembling. "It felt like you didn't care about me at all. You chose your job over me, and that really makes me question our friendship." "I'm so sorry, Mia. I really am," I replied. fighting back tears. "I never meant to hurt you. It was the toughest decision I've ever had to make. I thought you would understand that my career is very important, especially as I'm starting out." Mia took a deep breath. "I understand that work is important, but losing you on my biggest day felt like a betrayal. It brought up feelings from when we were kids, and you used to ditch me for other friends." I felt a stab of guilt. "I never meant to betray you. It was never my intention." The conversation evolved, with us both addressing our feelings honestly. Eventually, we reached a consensus. She needed time, and I needed to be patient. I wished to rebuild our friendship, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. The turning point months passed, and as Mia began adjusting to her new married life, I focused heavily on my work. The project was a success, and I was promoted to senior designer shortly after. Still, the shadow of my friendship with Mia loomed over me. One day, I decided to reach out. "Hey, can we grab coffee? I just want to hear how you're doing." To my surprise, Mia agreed. We met up, and the initial awkwardness faded over our steaming mugs of coffee. "I've been busy with the wedding and the honeymoon," she said, which felt like a small olive branch. "But I've also had time to think. I realized that I still value our friendship and the good times we had together." Smiling, I nodded. "I miss those times too." We began reminiscing about our childhood, our ridiculous inside jokes, and the times we'd been there for each other. Slowly but surely, the ice began to melt. As we talked, Mia shared about her new life as a married woman, while I poured my heart into sharing my work experiences. Eventually, the conversation shifted back to the wedding. "Do you regret not being there?" she asked, darting her eyes toward me with curiosity. "I don't know, honestly. I'm proud of my work, but I regret missing your big day, and I wish we could have celebrated together. It felt like a lose-lose situation for both of us." Mia sighed. "I think we both made choices. Yours was driven by your aspirations, while mine was from being afraid I was losing you. I've realized that sometimes we just have to trust that we can support each other through different paths." This moment was cathartic. I knew it wasn't about placing blame, but understanding each other's perspectives, finding common ground. As our coffee date continued, we made a pact. While life might whisk us in different directions, we'd always find ways to connect and be there for one another. We started planning monthly meetups, and our friendship felt more resilient after acknowledging the cracks. However, the topic of weddings kept resurfacing. Mia mentioned that she'd been pondering a renewal of vows down the line and insisted that I must be there this time. "Next time, no work projects," she said with a laugh. "Deal," I responded without hesitation, my heart warm with relief. The question, months later, as we continued to strengthen our friendship, I found myself getting drawn into a debate on Reddit, which led to the topic of friendships and prioritizing life choices. After a few exchanges, I thought it'd be therapeutic to share my story, hoping to receive the perspectives of others. I posted under the "Am I the Asshole?" subreddit. "AITA for choosing my career over my best friend's wedding. I feel I made the right choice for my career, but it cost me my friendship, and now I'm left questioning if I could have done things differently." The responses were varied. Many sympathized with Mia, saying that sometimes relationships take precedence over professional obligations, while others emphasized the importance of pursuing one's career and avoiding resentment. Reading through the comments, I felt an array of emotions. Some argued that my decision validated the sacrifices we all have to make in life, while others were adamant that family and friends should come first. In the end, as I reflected on both my initial feelings and the growth that came afterward, I realized that life choices, while complex, often lead to unexpected outcomes. My career flourished, and through that experience, my friendship with Mia transformed into a more profound connection. Conclusion. Months had passed since that fateful day, and while the scar of missing her wedding remained vivid in my memory, I found solace in the fact that we had come out stronger on the other end. I learned the invaluable lesson that pursuing one's dreams doesn't have to come at the cost of friendships. Ultimately, Whether I was the asshole for my decision was less important than the renewal of our bond and the focus on the present. Here's to the friendships we cherish and the personal journeys we embark on. Both are integral parts of who we are, each shaping us in ways we never could have anticipated. Hadit for not inviting my sister's kids to my wedding. Background. Hi Reddit. I'm a 29-year-old woman named Ella, and I'm getting married in a few months. This is a bit of a complicated story, but it's necessary to provide some context. To understand my dilemma, my sister Jess is 31 and has 3 kids aged 6, 4, and 2. Jess and I have always had a rocky relationship, primarily because of her parenting style and her occasional disrespect toward my life choices. To say that our bond has been strained in the past is an understatement. Throughout her life, Jess has often made impulsive decisions. She dropped out of college, got married young to a guy who was a notorious slacker, and has been largely dependent on her husband or our parents to support her children. Her inability to maintain a stable home has led to a somewhat chaotic lifestyle, and I've always found it difficult to relate to her. When I got engaged, I knew I wanted a small and intimate wedding. I envisioned a ceremony with my close family and friends, about 50 people max. My fiancé Mike shares the same view. He comes from a family that values understated elegance over grandeur. So we both agreed that children wouldn't be invited. It's not that we dislike kids. It's just that we want to keep the focus on us and our vows. The conflict. As I was finalizing my guest list, I had to decide whether or not to invite Jess and her kids. I have always loved my niece and nephews, but I've also witnessed how chaotic family events become when they're around. It was a hard decision, and I made the choice to invite Jess but not her children, knowing this would likely upset her. When I broke the news to Jess, she was shocked. "Wait, you're inviting me but not the kids?" she asked with a tone that indicated disbelief. "Yeah, Jess, that's how we're keeping it. It's a small wedding, and Mike and I both prefer not having kids there," I explained. Her reaction was immediate and, honestly, a bit dramatic. She started crying and told me how hurtful it was that I didn't want her kids at my wedding. I tried to express my reasoning, emphasizing that it had nothing to do with her parenting or the kids themselves. It was simply our preference for a child-free event. Jess didn't take it well at all. She called me selfish and accused me of valuing a perfect aesthetic over family. She said this was a defining moment in our relationship and that she wouldn't attend if her kids weren't. Welcome. This made my heart drop. I never wanted to create such a rift. Reaction from family. As news spread through our family, opinions were mixed. Some understood my decision, expressing that it was my wedding and my right to make it how I wanted, while others sided with Jess. My parents thought I was being too harsh and suggested I reconsider, particularly as Jess is going through a tough time with her marriage. They wanted to keep the peace within the family. In response to my parents, I felt a sense of frustration. I had always been the responsible one in our family, often doing what was expected to keep harmony, and this was my day. I wanted it to reflect what I cared about, not just meet everyone else's needs. A few weeks passed and Jess refused to speak to me. I was devastated, not just because of the impending wedding, but because I also valued our relationship as sisters. I tried reaching out a few times, suggesting we meet to talk things over. Each time she ignored my calls or replied with short, hurtful messages that stated I was making a huge mistake. An unexpected visitor. One weekend, I decided to take a break from wedding planning and came home after running errands. I was utterly surprised to find Jess standing on my doorstep with her kids in tow. "Get in," I gestured reluctantly, feeling the weight of the moment. The kids ran around excitedly as Jess took a deep breath, clearly gearing up for a fight. "I just don't understand how you can exclude your whole family from such an important day," Jess opened, regaining her composure. We ended up going back and forth for hours as the kids played. I let her vent while trying to articulate my feelings about wanting a certain celebratory atmosphere. Jess kept pressing on how special it is for kids to attend family functions and how disheartening it was for them, and I felt increasingly troubled. However, I stood my ground. Jess pointed out that other family weddings had included children and stated, "You'll regret it someday." Her accusations hit hard, and I felt guilty for standing my ground. But I couldn't shake off the feeling that I'd lose control of the atmosphere if her kids were there. The ultimatum. Eventually, Jess delivered an ultimatum. She told me that if her kids weren't coming, she wouldn't attend the wedding. I was torn. Part of me wanted to say, "Fine, don't come," as I did think it was unreasonable of her to demand that, but I couldn't shake the fear of losing her place in my life. I talked to Mike about it, and he said he'd offer to speak with her. I was hesitant. Neither of us wanted to embroil ourselves in family drama. But a part of me thought it might break the impasse if someone else was on my side. When Mike reached Jess, she was still very agitated, but agreed to meet him for coffee. Afterwards, he returned home saying it went okay, but Jess was still adamant about not attending without her kids. The day of decision. Time moved on, and as the wedding date approached, the pressure rose. I felt guilt switching places with excitement. I spent days brainstorming ways to amend things with Jess, but every time I thought about it, I just believed I was in the right. Ultimately, the day arrived, and Jess didn't show up. It was evident she'd made her choice. I felt a mixture of sadness and relief as I walked down the aisle. Mike and I had an incredible ceremony surrounded by friends and family who loved us. As I stared into his eyes, I felt like I was missing an important part of my heart. Every time I looked at my family, Jess's absence loomed large. After the wedding. Now that it's been a few weeks post-wedding, I still haven't communicated with Jess. I feel bad for what happened, but I also think I made the right decision given the circumstances. I've been getting varying responses from my family as well. Some are telling me I should reach out to mend fences, while others are saying Jess needs to come to terms with my decision. So, Reddit, AITA for not inviting my sister's kids to my wedding. Should I pull out an olive branch and invite her kids to a small family gathering or stick to my guns? Help me out.